What is going on, everybody? Welcome to week one of a Dave and a Dan. What is it? Who's Dave? Who's Dan? Well, I brought in Dave to teach you kind of not how to be a Dan. And what is a Dan? We'll learn. I've brought up Dan for well over a year now. If you've been watching this video, I say, all right, who wants to bet? Am I giving out a bet for Dan tonight? If you need to know who Dan is, here's just a quick reminder. He's your standard 9 to 5 regular bettor. He waves at his neighbors and is basically only interested in one straight bet per evening. You think his wife is letting him bet every night of the week? You think he gets a Sunday night football bet and a Monday? It's just a regular guy who's allowed one bet. And if he wins, he doesn't even get it. The wife gets the funds. So I brought in Dave. You obviously know I used to team up with him a bunch over at Odd Shopper. I always love doing those videos with him. And as always, you know, you Patreon members, you fund my endeavors here. You fund the studio and you get rewarded like you did last night. I mean, I don't know if the sports betting gods were smiling down on me because I started with the full sweep. All the plus 400s, the plus 1,000, everything hit. And the beautiful thing about that is when something like that happens, I've always theorized that the majority of sports bettors are just kind of hawks around the internet. If you ever read stories about the casinos of like those old women who just kind of hide off to the side, waiting to see somebody who plays a slot machine for a long time and not win, so that then they get in there and they can get the big cash out. I feel like everyone's a hawk, just seeing who gets hot, and whoever gets hot, they sound the orc horns, which means I'm probably going to have new viewers here on this video. So welcome to the show, and I'd like you to welcome Dave. Dave, this worked out very well because my guess is that you're just going to have angry and thirsty sports bettors with fistfuls of cash looking for some assistance for tonight's game and into this weekend. So I think we kind of started at the
Yeah, man, I'm glad to be reunited here. We did a lot over on Odd Shopper, had a good time, and man, glad to see in your independent endeavors going quite well. What was the plus 400?
So there were two plus 400s. One was the over 9.5 rushing attempts for Lamar Jackson. It was set at 8.5, and then the it was over 7.5 receiving yards for Justice Hill.
Easy. Yes, easy money. Yeah.
That's
solid.
And then the plus 1,000 was 20 receiving yards for Justice Hill and 80 plus receiving yards for Rashee Rice, who just at the end he looked no different to me than he did at the end of the year. He just was. Yeah.
He's a monster after the catch. It's really amazing. He is. And then you had Isaiah Likely come out of nowhere. Xavier Worthy. That was really one of the best opening games I can remember. In fairness, I don't remember any of them outside of last year with Kadarius Toney dropping that ball on Thursday Night Football. Wait, was that Thursday? It was, right? When was the Rodgers game where he got hurt? That was Monday night. Okay, on 9/11. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah,
I thought of a great Monday Night Football. It was the Chiefs at the Super Bowl champion Patriots, and I think Brady maybe staved off a suspension or something, and everybody had the Goodell clown noses in the crowd, and it was Kareem Hunt's first game, and he fumbled his first carry after never fumbling in college, and then went off to have a monster game. And the Chiefs with Alex Smith actually won this crazy high-scoring game against the Patriots, who seemingly never lost openers after winning a Super Bowl. That one was definitely a pretty good game.
Yeah, and now Andy Reid 10-1 straight up in week one with the Chiefs. So him and Harbaugh, that was a tough game. I was on Chiefs minus 2.5, and when Baltimore seemingly scored on that Isaiah Likely touchdown, and then Harbaugh wants to go for 2, I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna lose it either way, right? Like, you can't at least take it to overtime, but sometimes you get lucky, and like, spread bets are for the people. That's kind of what it is at this point.
See that guy over my shoulder? That's who the spread bets are for. And I know you're going to pretend, you're going to say, no, I'm not a spread. I know you're a spread better. And last night was the perfect example. It was the perfect explanation. I can't put it in words any better than that video brought it to life. And that was, if you bet the -2.5 or the +3.5 or whatever it was, you're talking about a pinky toe.
Yep.
A toe. If that guy was if that was Xavier Worthy, his smaller feet are definitely inbounds. And all of those spread bettors went, oh, I'm so smart, I took the Ravens. But now everyone's a genius who took the Chiefs. There's zero edge. There is excitement, and I really don't care. You can do whatever the hell you want. But how quickly did we cash that Justice Hill? If you have the proper sniffs and there's some rhyme and reason, you can end it like that. For the most part, all of our other props that we brought in with some good rhyme and reason, they were all cashed by the fourth quarter. That's what we're looking for. And there's not a spread bet that exists, for the most part, that you're just going to breeze through from the beginning of the game. So I can't reiterate it anymore, but it doesn't matter how many times I say things. You know how many people tell me, Dave, they go, someone's like, oh, I lost. I go, how did you guys lose? 7 out of the 8 picks won. They go, oh, I parlayed it all together. I'm like, why are you doing that? They go, well, once I just hit the +4,000 parlay, then I'm going to go straight back. I don't have the bankroll once I hit it. And then what happens? They finally hit one. And when push comes to shove, what do? That just means bigger parlays with more money behind it.
Of course.
What are you going to do? It's a classic tale of trying to figure out, do you give sound advice and get fewer views, or do you throw meat right into the woods? And then if it doesn't work out, just let those people get those stakes to the heart from the tribesmen who are waiting off to the side as they, inevitably got screwed on that last play or whatnot. But we will do a little bit of both here. Like, I gave a begrudging Chiefs 2.5. I don't see the Chiefs losing back-to-back openers after winning back-to-back Super Bowls. And look, I got lucky.
We both did. Yeah. I paid a little bit extra for the 2.5 because I thought the spread was just where it should be. At 3.
So speaking of paying a little bit extra, do you have, I know you always came towards the Eagles with a pretty even-keeled disposition, borderline miserable Northeast guy disposition. I tell people sometimes, and I'm sure you know this as well, I know I've heard Greg talk about this on the channel, that if you're betting on primetime games, you kind of already lost, because what I told people yesterday is you can absolutely like bets on primetime games as long as you say, if these games were on Sunday in the midst of all the other bets on the slate, I would still gladly take that. Then it's a good bet.
Well, take it a step further, though, Andy. It's week 1. So these lines have been out forever. They've been picked to pieces by now.
Well, every once in a while, though, new information will come in that might shift those on the last day or two or right before game time. We'll talk about those, for Sunday in a little bit. But I do want to ask you, this will be out just a few hours before tonight's game. This is a game, I felt very good about a couple different picks on that first game. And then the reason I said that primetime stat where I was like, look, if you don't think that you would have picked these on a Sunday, then just tread lightly. This Eagles-Packers game is a tread lightly game for me. And I gave just a kind of, I kind of think this, and I kind of think that you paid down. Should I say paid up or paid down to get the Chiefs at -2.5? I feel that way in the opposite direction to try to get the Packers at +3.5. And, the analogy I gave was the Eagles and Packers were on those mall escalators to end the year. Like, one just was going directly down and the other was ascending in the opposite direction. How are you feeling about the Eagles tonight?
I lean Philly. And for what it's worth, anyone, this guy's a homer. If you watched any of my video, I do all of my stuff over on OddsShopper and for DFS on Stochastic. But if you watched anything from OddsShopper last year, I was just routinely betting against the Eagles. 10-point favorites against the Giants, 11-point favorites against the Cardinals. The bottom fell out of that team long before that. Even on their 10-1 run to start the season, coming off of a Super Bowl loss, this team was lucky. Lest we forget, Marquez Valdez-Scantling dropped a would-be game-winning touchdown for Kansas City against Philly. Gabe Davis dropped a touchdown against Philly in the left corner of the end zone. Would have won. I could go over almost we barely beat New England in week 1 last year. So when you look at that 10-1 record, really that was a 6-5 record, right? And then the wheels fell off. The difference though is you have Vic Fangio now, you have Kellen Moore. They went out and paid up for Saquon Barkley. I do still think there's a lot of talent on this football team, clearly. Kelsey's gone, not worried about the offensive line. The defensive line has a ton of young talent, some big fellas, and they draft Quinion Johnson in the first round. They brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Quinion Mitchell, sorry. They brought C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. There's talent here. And on the other side, Jordan Love was dismal to start this first half of the season. It was bad. I remember just shitting on him left and right. And then just quick pivot, 180 out of the blue. Looks amazing. They go in and they beat up on the Cowboys in the postseason. They almost beat the 49ers, who go on to the Super Bowl. But at the same time, it's such a small sample. We don't really, and this may be one of the reasons why you're kind of scratching your head on it, and I don't blame you, because I feel similarly. We don't really know what Jordan Love and this offense is going to look like. They brought in Jeff Hafley to shore up this defense. Their run defense sucked last year. But then we don't know if Vic Fangio fixed the defense for Philly. We don't know if Kellen Moore fixed things for on the offense. So I would lean Philly -2, only because this is, like you're saying, you might pay additional for the 3.5, but because it's inside of a field goal on a neutral state in a neutral platform. And I think Philadelphia is a little bit more proven right now than the Packers, but this is a lean more than anything else.
Yeah, it's really tough to say. It's what I kind of said is I've seen very few teams in my life in any sport end with the amount of turmoil and just bad juju that the Eagles have. Players talking about stuff. Like, it doesn't get much worse than that. How many times does it go from that to, and we just became that dominant team once again, when it's the same coach and a lot of the same issues may still persist, including Jalen Hurts, who, after they lost that offensive coordinator, 2 things. Didn't quite look as good, and he looked a little hesitant to run after that injury that happened late the previous year. He wasn't just gung-ho, and I'm very interested to see how both of those things play out. Just kind of, it's interesting. I do want to add one thing. Yesterday in the video that I put out about that, still there was no line on Josh Jacobs, his rushing attempts, because I talked about how there's going to be nobody behind him, only the 4-string running back. And I just can't. They've released it since. I can't do any player in the NFL over 16.5. It's just too much.
That's a lot, because if the game script flips on him even a little bit, it's not going to be there. Yeah. So unless you have anything you kind of like in that game, I'm going to talk about some stuff for this weekend. Sure, we can get into the weekend. Absolutely. I would look, if you're looking for some volatility and some lines that are, pretty dramatically different across the industry, still in some spots, by the way, Saquon Barkley is a question mark to me, but in a good way. That's why I loved Xavier Worthy yesterday, because DFS as well, but also in betting, because just the unknown. And I don't think the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley without the intent to use him heavily.
Like Henry?
Well, no, I actually think quite different than Henry, because
I know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that guy. Just side note, sorry to go back to it, but in my head, even before the game, I'm like, I couldn't think of a worse fit for a team that just lost 3 members of their offensive line, likes running out of the shotgun, and is like this speed outside team. Yeah. What the hell was that?
I said it as well. I don't think Henry moves the needle on that offense at all. At all. Gus Edwards led the league in goal line touchdowns and goal line carries last year. You could have kept Gus Edwards. It would have been no worse for wear.
Just side note. But
Yeah.
Barkley, you said.
Yeah, I like Barkley over 15.5 receiving yards. I expect them to use him in wheel routes. I think Kellen Moore in this offense, that they're just going to throw to the running backs more than we've seen in the past. I also don't anticipate Saquon Barkley's snap share looking anything like DeAndre Swift's or Miles Sanders. Maybe a little less earlier in the year to keep him fresh. But you went out the Eagles do not pay running backs. They do not do it, right? Like you had Miles Sanders after his rookie contract, see you later. He goes and stinks it up in Carolina. DeAndre Swift, they grab him for nothing. I believe they still got a conditional pick back, basically got him for free. They weren't paying that guy. He was a rental, not even a rental. It was just, hey, you're here. He got used. But Kenny Gainwell's not very good. Shipley could be, but you're not going to see him early on getting any work. I think they heavily use Saquon Barkley. He's a phenomenal pass catcher. And this guy has never had any pass blocking, run blocking. The offensive line's been terrible in New York. So some overs I like. I also did bet plus 425 for a 100-yard rushing game for Barkley. That is a sprinkle. Small wager. But with a good offensive line, if Jeff Hafley hasn't fixed this really bad run defense by week 1, because mind you, the starters only played a drive and a half in the preseason, this could end up being a spot that shocks people for Saquon Barkley.
Do you want to know my sprinkles for this game?
Please, let's hear it.
So, Jordan Love, did you happen to see his passing total? It's around 255, I believe, or something like that.
Right now on DraftKings, and I can pull it up over on OddsShopper just to see everywhere. But I love.
This is not the bet. This has to do with
got you.
With what I'm about to say.
255.5. By the way, how about DraftKings burying all the two-way lines? I know you and I. Whatever. We'll get to this later.
That's right. That's literally the reason this show exists.
Yeah, I knew you were going to have an opinion, but then I was going to sidetrack you on Jordan Love, so I'm trying to.
Just remember. You said something about Love passing yards because now you see this tweet on your screen, which I'll have pulled up, Dave. Almost in like, I didn't know if he was playing the part of a character. Sometimes my friends do. They go, what was it always like this? Where
I genuinely couldn't remember
the totals with the kind of milestone totals at the top and buried the under, making it seem like, oh, they don't want you to bet unders, this, that, and the other. So they're kind of trying to hide them for you. To which I promptly responded, Dave, think about Dan. What does he want to do? Dan doesn't even want to see a decimal point. A half a yard. Does that mean if he gets a half, I push? They just want idiotic 60 plus. So they want idiotic numbers and overs. That's exactly what they want. Because they know the crafty vets, the old relievers who know how to get people out with that spit on the pitch, they'll find that under. They will do whatever you have to do to find that under. They're not worried about them. They just want to give exactly what the people are looking for. Clean numbers with a zero right at the top. I mean, if you had 100 bettors come to the Dave Sportsbook, how many of them are just clicking on that? More than 7.
You are right. You're right. Without question. But it's also deceptive, and I'll tell you why. Because the two-way lines, and for those of you that might be relatively new, it's just, you have the over and the under as a two-way line. The one-way line is just the over. It takes up like this much of the page, right?
Okay, that's
you still see the milestones. It takes up this much. If I want to get to the two ways, I scroll for 45 minutes, take a break, and come back. Dude, I'm telling you right now, it's deceptive practices.
Look, we already got to the bottom of the Deshaun Watson burner saga.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
Part of the reason I also want Dave on the show is we're going to figure shit out throughout the course of this year. Some funny, some betting related, some about the Eagles potentially being in disarray, but we're going to get to the bottom of these things. But that is interesting that I never thought about that. It's like the subtle change of the font size, maybe. Like the two-way bets are in a font 11 while the
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it even says like don't bet this above it. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but we're similar. We're on the same page kind of, but I just think it wouldn't it's not hard to just like, you'd still see it. You'd still see it, even if it was up there.
So Jordan Love has passing total around 255 yards. Every single Eagle, you have a higher receiving total than on the sports book. You're talking about 37 yards for Doubs, 38.5 for Christian Watson. It doesn't add up. How's one guy getting to 255? All four of those receivers can hit their overs, and you still need 150, 200 yards. So my thought is one of these guys is burying that total. So give me the guys with the two most snaps, which is probably going to be, from what we saw in the preseason, Doubs and Watson, and let me bang some of those right at the top of the page in size 13 font, 50 plus. I think if you take 70 plus on both of those guys, one of them is going to hit it, or whatever. Get to the point where if one of them cashes, you actually clear money on both the bets. I just think that's bound to happen. Like whether it's 75 or 80, I mean, they're both set at 38.5. I think 70 yards has to be over plus 200, no?
Yeah. So I see what you're saying. You're just trying to. The only question I have is, and which were the two that you named?
I'm going with the guys who are guaranteed to have the most snaps, which is what we learned on a family night in the preseason. Doubs is absolutely going to have the most snaps. That's
Correct.
without.
Correct.
The question always was, well, Watson, is he going to be? Are they going to manage the hamstring? I just learned that between mini camps, training camp, and everything, guy did not miss a single practice, not a single one.
He's fine.
So then, if I can expect him, my side bet, because of the Josh Jacobs heavy involvement, Watson has run sneaky end arounds, and his rushing and receiving total is basically the same as his receiving total. I think they may throw one or two of those end arounds in there, and you can kind of chop off yards on his rushing and receiving total. That's one of my sneaky plays for the game. It's all I could kind of craft up because I don't particularly love this game in Brazil.
I like it. It's kind of sneaky. That's the thing, though. You have this team where it's difficult because Dontavian Wicks should be involved. You look at the divisional round last year, and Doubs played 81%, Jaden Reed played 61%, Wicks played 40%, Christian Watson played 55%. The week before that, Christian Watson played 41%, but he was coming off an injury. Wicks played 55%, Reed played 46%, Doubs played 70%, and Bo Melton was playing 30% of snaps in those. Bo Melton playing 30% of snaps. So, yeah, it's you're trying to hit a moving target there for sure.
So the reason I say then chill on some of those games is because we can try to isolate ones that we like. You talked about liking Barkley tonight. I talked about loving Justice Hill last night. You don't want to throw around the term guarantee, but there is one on Sunday I like just as much as that Justice Hill, and it's hardly any more yards, and I feel like this one's going to be moving any minute now because of the information that I kind of knew ahead of time, but now people are really starting to make a stink about it, which means people are going to bet it. And I looked on OddsShopper before, and I think there's one site left that has it 9.5 receiving yards, and this is a 3-down back in this offense. Saquon Barkley's replacement, 9.5 receiving yards for Devin Singletary. Whether Barkley played or not, every single running back who played in the Daniel Jones games last year had a minimum of 3 catches. So you're talking about an offense that likes to get the running backs involved. A team that has a great rookie and not much else outside of that. 9.5 receiving yards for a borderline, I hate to say it, like Christian McCaffrey level of snap share involvement. I think this is the biggest slam dunk. It's going to be probably my favorite play of the weekend.
I like it. I like where you're going to. You're looking at some lower receiving totals, guys that people aren't really targeting. No one's really looking at Devin Singletary. I like that. One thing I love to do, and you're not going to get a lot of this in week one, but and a lot of books stopped even doing it. I like to grab under rushing yards for backup running backs as well. I'm talking like under 9.5 rushing yards. A lot of times they get 1 or 2 carries against good defenses, and there's nothing there. But this, I see where you're going. Minnesota defensively is not very good. Brian Flores came in, and he's kind of like a well-known and respected defensive coordinator. They were middle of the road last year. They don't have an elite pass rush, but New York doesn't have a great offensive line, although they should be much improved based on the fact that they're healthy. But 9.5 yards for a 3-down back, you kind of just have to bet that. That's not like everybody jamming Derrick Henry over 7.5 receiving yards yesterday and him getting 1 target when you know that Justice Hill can catch passes. I'm with you.
You actually just kind of made me think the way you phrase that about you like to target backup running backs who potentially aren't going to. How have you even add rookie to that mix?
Yeah,
right. So now it's a backup and a rookie. I saw one. I only saw the rushing attempts. Maybe if you have it somewhat available, and I can kill some time as you find it. Blake Corum, Kyron's backup. I saw him projected at 6.5 rushing attempts. Are you nuts? He's not carrying it 7 times.
I will not mess with that. I won't go near that. Over or under.
You're scared of McVay? McVay rides one guy typically.
No, he doesn't. He does until he does.
His whole career he has until he hated both running backs, Akers and Henderson. He literally only rotated when he despised them. As soon as he had one he liked, he cut Akers and ran Kyron to the ground. And if you look before that, Gurley, when Akers was good, he ran him to the ground. He doesn't really do timeshares whatsoever. It's kind of a misconception because of the 1.5 years they had nobody. But if you look before and after.
Yeah, look, I get what you're saying, but I'd feel a little bit differently if McVay, before last season, let's not forget, like McVay went to the media and said, Akers is going to have a massive season. He's our guy. We love this guy. He's going to have a huge season. Cam Akers was getting massive work down the stretch in 2022. And then he was just discarded like trash. And Kyron Williams was the guy. Another thing, go ahead.
But that was contingent on Baker Mayfield coming in there. They were out of it. So it was more just like, see what the hell we got.
But they drafted Corum in the 3rd round. Like this is.
So what? This is like Ray Davis. He's gonna get fucking 2 carries this weekend. People thinking, oh, he's gonna supplant James Cook. James Cook just had 1,500 yards, and he's only getting better. I mean, I just like when you saw how they used Kyron immediately when he came back from injury, gave him a ton of work, and he was like the key to their success. They're playing the Lions, a game they're gonna want to win. They're not gonna let this rookie handle more than just a few carries. There's just no way. I mean, it's undeniable that McVay, I will be shocked. You're talking about a guy who was as productive as Christian McCaffrey last year. And just people, they just can't get it out of their head. I don't stand up for those scam running backs, like when Dameon Pierce comes out. This was completely different. He was awesome. And he was like driving so much of their success. I mean, we will see. It's something good to check back in on, but unless they have a significant lead, It
does seem high, for sure. But I think the only reason it is high is because of Sean McVay. I mean, Ray Davis is at 16.5 receiving yards right now.
Oh no, I'm talking about rushing.
Oh, I'm sorry, rushing yards. That's all. I know. I understand. I misquoted that or misphrased it. Yeah, Ray Davis, and I know you're talking about Blake Corum, but I'm going over. You mentioned Davis. 16.5 rushing yards. And do we have, I'd love to find the rushing attempt prop if DraftKings didn't have it 16 pages down. Seriously, okay. I have to go. It's insane. You have to go past all of this just to find it. But here we go. They don't have one for Ray Davis. Under 16.5 for Ray Davis, I actually like more.
I still don't even know what the rushing total was for Corum. I only knew what the rushing attempts were. I just assume if they're listing him at 6.5, it's got to be a pretty high rushing total.
You might just be right, and that you just blanket underbet a lot of these rookie backups.
That sounds like a quick way to get your account limited.
Yeah, right. wouldn't make a difference now anyway. But Blake Corum, all right, you want to take a guess at his yardage prop?
34.5.
24.5.
Oof. Yeah, all right. That scares me a little.
Which makes sense if you're talking 6.5 attempts, right? You're talking 6.5 attempts. That's still 7. Yeah, 24.5 is probably where it should be.
That's fair. See, that actually does sound correct. But it was just, I don't know. For me, just receiving 7 carries, the teams run so infrequently these days that seems like a lot of carries. Anyway, you do a show where you pretty much talk about every single NFL game. Now, obviously, it's impossible to like things as much from every single game. When you were looking at that slate, is there anything that stood out to you? If I could pry some of your, most poignant information from that video, was there anything that stood out to you as glaring as the Singletary bet stood out to me?
I don't want to say glaring, and it's unfortunate because I had this one from earlier in the week and it has since moved. But Malik Nabers had a receiving yards prop below 60. And look, he's a rookie. But if you saw Daniel Jones week 2 of the preseason against the Houston Texans, right? And mind you, this was for the first quarter, it was a Houston Texans starters. Malik Nabers was peppered with targets. Finished with well over this number in one half of football on a boatload of targets from Daniel Jones, who played the entirety of the half in his first game back since tearing his ACL. For those of you out there who like to have fun, I laddered the Nabers prop up to 90 at plus 330, but unfortunately now 90 is plus 230, so it's come down significantly. But even 63.5 receiving yards, and I can pull it up on OddsShopper, our live odds page, by the way, for anybody that ever wants to check it out, it's free. So you can just pull it up immediately and it'll make your life very easy. But my guess, Andy, is it's probably around 63.5 everywhere. Who else is Daniel? They drafted this guy as I think he's going to have a better season than Marvin Harrison Jr. And maybe that's just crazy talk, but I think it's very possible that he does.
I gotta say, Dave, we have one major philosophical difference that I'm realizing now. Like you took Worthy last night. I have it's a borderline ironclad policy. If you haven't seen something, don't try to be a hero. Like, you could be right about Worthy. You can be dead wrong about Worthy. We don't know. Like, I try to place all my bets on some sort of established connection. I remember how frequently Lamar, when under pressure, would just do one of those little sidearms out into the flat. There's a certain degree of hoping Nabers is like that. The same way you had to hope Waller was your only dynamic player. And Waller was unguardable in camp last year. Nobody could stop Darren Waller. It was going to be a tight end to which the likes the world has never seen. Fucking guy never caught a pass.
He was hurt.
No, but even at any point throughout the year when he was playing
through it. Look, I hear you, but I think you have to. Rookie wide receivers are not the rookie wide receivers of the past. And what I'm saying is, with a lot of these guys, I don't think the books are pricing some of these numbers correctly because we're still looking at them as rookie wide receivers who haven't proven themselves. There is nobody. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. Who do they have? Theo Johnson? Who are we talking about on this team that you have true concerns? You're going to have to throw the football. You're going to have to throw the ball. What makes you think that it's going to take Malik Nabers? And this is not rhetorical. I'm actually what makes you think it's going to take Malik Nabers time to get the lion's share of targets in this offense?
I've seen Daniel Jones ruin just about everybody. And I know, there are scenarios like Gardner Minshew, great for Michael Pittman, and it's on a case-by-case basis. But when Daniel Jones is playing awful, I swear to you, prime Calvin Johnson could be held under 50 yards. It's the case. It is and Giants fans know that's the deal. Like, you could be the same way Zach Wilson could tank Garrett Wilson. I think it's going to be just like that. Or it could be. I think he's a great pick for the year. He's going to have some games. Just getting, you'd think like Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton aren't going to get anything. This dirtbag Daniel Jones likes those two guys for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they're going to get a couple short dinky catches.
Oh, I think they will. I think they will. I just think that Malik Nabers, you don't draft a guy like this as high as you do to not come in and immediately be the presumed answer to your questions in the passing game.
All right, we saw Kenny Galladay have to retire after.
Kenny Galladay stunk, man. Come on, stop.
Yeah, I'm just
look. I get your point here. I get your logic. I'm with you on unders for some of these backup running backs. I couldn't find the Blake Corum rushing prop.
All right, so no, but you bring up somebody like Nabers, and I'll just counter that and say, okay, why don't you give me Christian Kirk, who I know is Lawrence's favorite receiver.
Love Christian Kirk.
I mean, they're playing in what's supposed to be a shootout. They're going to have to throw. There's no more Calvin Ridley there. We don't know about Thomas and Gabe Davis, and they're like, what I'm saying is like, it feels like if you had to take a pick, a theoretical you, not the real you, but like just from a philosophical standpoint, oh, well, give me Gabe Davis because, he can get one deep and he can get his over 30 yards or something in one catch. Where I'll say, I know he's going to be looking for Kirk a ton, and he has a relatively low total. Like, Kirk's total is lower than Nabers' total, and I'm not dealing with a bum quarterback, and I get to look at the mountains of evidence that he will be heavily involved.
But that's apples to oranges, right? Like, first of all, I already bet the over on Kirk receiving yards.
By the way, this is something that I do like, and I already gave out on my Patreon, and I will include like with my picks and whatnot. I really do like Christian Kirk for kind of those reasons I just alluded to.
I also like Brian Thomas on the season.
And see, there he is. There he is, Mr. First Game.
You don't? I said on the season.
Like his season total, what is it, like 750 or something?
No, I'm just saying I expect Brian Thomas to have a nice season. Gabe Davis is the most. If Gabe Davis couldn't be even somewhat reliable in Buffalo with Josh Allen as the number 2, what leads me to believe that he can do it in Jacksonville? Not much. Let's not forget, you mentioned Christian Kirk, but Evan Ingram was also a big-time focal point of that offense down the stretch last year.
Yeah, ton of catches.
What I'm saying, though, as far as apples to oranges, one, the two aren't mutually exclusive. I like Christian Kirk this week. But two, this is not saying, this is not comparable to me being like, I like Gabe Davis, the unknown, because I'm also fully aware that there's also a early draft pick in Brian Thomas there and a solidified number 1 in Christian Kirk plus Evan Ingram.
Or even Brian Thomas. But if you would like Brian Thomas in this game, that would be the equivalent.
No, it wouldn't. Because we know that Christian Kirk in the hierarchy of targets over the years is a good player, is going to command a significant target share, and so is Evan Ingram. You cannot say that about a single other pass catcher in New York, and you can't say that Darius Slayton is higher in the pecking order. You can't say Wan'Dale Robinson. They don't have a viable pass-catching tight end. None of those guys can you say are higher in the pecking order than Malik Nabers, or even close.
It is a Dave and a Dan, and we haven't really gave him any Dans to Dan about. On the whole slate, I was curious. My big thing is if everyone's betting on something, there couldn't be a worse bet to take. Like, I tell people, do you really want to be on the same side as the unluckiest guy in your town who is probably betting against everyone's betting against the Colts, correct? I think they're the most bet against team. Like that the guy in your town, the one that you heard about who loses every single bet.
Betting the Colts.
He goes, oh my God, -2.5? They're so good. They added Diggs. And then the Colts, I mean, that's who you're going to side with?
You're 100%. By the way, I don't know why you call yourself a Dan. I think your read on sports betting is
I'm not
solid.
a Dan. I said it's a Dave and a Dan. Dan's over there.
Then why would you? What? See, that to me that's where you made the mistake. Dave and a Dan. If I'm Dave, then who's Dan?
The viewers.
Hi, Dan.
What about you?
Me, my name is Andy, and I'm just sitting here talking about something.
I love it. I just wasn't sure how that was supposed to be. Now, it's all come into focus. I get it, and I like it.
Look, you can call me Dan. Doesn't matter. My big thing, there's a
No,
reason
I was
it's also a play
complimenting
on
you.
words.
What are you talking about? I was complimenting you.
I don't like, and thank you, by the way. You know us Northeasterners, we can't take compliments.
Of course not. Yeah.
So I said just on my comedy pod, I hate these people now. They need to get their little stamp on the world by naming their kid, cold cuts and all these ridiculous names that are out there, red mustard, their colors and season. It's just getting more ridiculous. And now we name our dogs Bartholomew and Frank. It's the name of like old politicians and people who signed the Declaration of Independence. We've switched animals and people. And I remember growing up, and these are all my friends' names. You ready? Mike, Steve, Tom, Rob, Dan, 2 other Mikes, Eric, Larry. Those are standard American names. Bring back short names. It's something I've been kind of going off on for a while. So that was another reason I liked a Dave and a Dan, because I believe in having regular old school American names.
It's a great point. Every friend of mine as a kid also, yeah. Pat, Chris, Mike, Shane, Dan. Yep. It's true. Like that's all of them. It's a good point. Just simplicity. And it's short names that you could make even shorter. You turn Patrick into Pat. It's too easy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
4-letter maxes around here. That's it.
Hey,
I want 4 or under.
Yeah. Not to derail us, but Justin Fields is taking first reps practice with Pittsburgh right now. Russell Wilson not practicing. And T. Higgins now questionable. And we don't know if Jamar Chase is going to play. So those are a couple significant pieces of news that we got to watch for.
I mean, while the Bengals are notoriously slow starters out of the gate, that would take those would take some big balls to bet against them. That is pretty interesting because this Chase thing is real weird. I can't remember. It's like a semi hold in, but I'll practice every once in a while just to keep people happy. I don't know what the hell that is. But anyway, going back to Indianapolis, to me, that's like you know what? Maybe Houston does cover. I'm not betting with the unluckiest guy in town. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you on that slate?
I like the Colts in this game.
Wow. I didn't say you have to take the other side. I just said
I do,
what's
though.
something you like. Good.
By the way, if you're looking at a bet on that Bengals game, instead of the spread, if you're uncomfortable trying to grab New England as an 8.5-point dog because their offense stinks, Bengals are still Bengals under 24.5 points. That, to me, I don't mind that at all. I mean, you think about it, 24 is for a team total. That's a key number, right? 3 touchdowns and a field goal. You're getting it at 24.5 with standard minus 110 juice on that. I really don't hate it. Like T. Higgins is who knows what's going on with him? Who knows what's going on with Chase? You mentioned they're traditionally slow starters on that team. They shouldn't need to score a lot of points. They can try and grind it out on the ground, though the Patriots have a good run defense, and I think even without Matthew Judon that this defense is going to be pretty good. The more I look at this and the question marks for Cincinnati, the more I think under 24.5 actually looks pretty nice.
My only concern, and you can just straight up call this like a sniff-related type of worry.
Sure.
You're not gonna see anything. No one's ever gonna say something like this. This kind of mini rivalry with the Bengals and the Chiefs. The Bengals are seen as like the team that just their style is like the biggest threat to them. They lost in that one AFC championship, the most recent one. And then Burrow got injured last year. There was that thing with Chase refusing to say Mahomes' name in like the top 10 and whatnot. They play next week, and I'm just worried that Cincinnati is like on a mission to beat them next week, and that requires coming out and throwing an absolute beating to make sure they're in full rhythm, not messing around, coming out. Like, I think those slow starts are a point of concerned for them. They know how many times they've started slow. I'm just a little worried we may see a thrashing for the reason of next week playing the Chiefs. That's my concern.
It's possible. Or they're looking ahead to the Chiefs and they barely get by. But it's tough to say because, historically, week one dogs of 6.5 or more cover at a really high rate. Like when you see spreads this big in week one, and remember, everyone expects the Patriots to just be dog shit, right? Expect them to be terrible. Tell me this isn't the type of spot where the Patriots come out and surprise. Like, if I were to come out and see, not that the Patriots win, but that this game comes down to like the final 1 or 2 possessions, it wouldn't surprise me even a little bit because that's how football works. You know this, Andy. Like,
with NFL, I tell people.
With the Panthers, divisional road dogs after what happened last year to the Saints. If I'm betting that game, I'm taking the Panthers, 4.5-point dog.
The Philadelphia Eagles were an unstoppable team, just massacring everybody. And they lost to Taylor Heineke.
Yep.
In prime
Patriots
time.
Almost beat them last year in week one.
But Jets, it's different. It's different because they were rolling. And it wasn't like you said last year, they kind of got a lucky win here and there. That was the dominant Eagles, crushing everybody. And they lost to Taylor Heineke. It can easily happen in the NFL. So Andy, that's something that I always...
They were 7-0 before losing their first game to the Jets.
Yeah, the late interception. Yeah. I remember that. So,
I mean, just the Colts, by the way, I'm not a huge trends guy, but for week one, I tend to look at it. Steve Mackin, I saw this from VSiN, mentioned division home dogs are 18-9-2 straight up in week one, 23-6 against the spread, 79% since 2009. Now, I know the Colts in week one have not been good, but 23-6 against the spread, 79% against the spread in week one as division home dogs in week one.
So I'm going to, not a division game, but it's certainly a game everyone's going to be watching. I think the Niners are due for a down year. I think the Eagles and Niners are two teams, unfortunately, due for a down year for different reasons. I think the Eagles are fine. I just think they need to shake the turmoil. And I think the Sirianni thing's going to, that's for another day. But
I'm on the Jets too, by the way.
Forget about the year. Just look at everything surrounding San Fran at the moment. Brandon Ayuk finally just got signed. You're talking about a guy who did not participate in all of training camp, none of the preseason, and now is getting a week and a half of practice. And I know that might not concern you some, but even if it's managed time, they have one quality outside wide receiver who runs routes around the field. Then they just signed their best offensive lineman who got no training camp, no practice, no preseason. Their line was getting swallowed up, and Brock Purdy looked awful in the preseason because he obviously needs some time. Do you need some more stuff? Christian McCaffrey didn't practice the majority of training camp. Now they go, no, he's good to go. After getting boatloads of work last year, you're seeing a somewhat older running back already starting off on the wrong foot. So you're talking about a myriad of issues coming in on opening night, and then just that awful feeling of the way they lost the Super Bowl. And there are question marks about the Jets. We got to see how Rodgers is, but my God, something catastrophic happening in back-to-back opening Monday footballs. I'm going to say no, but that Jets D should be able to crush if this Niners line isn't like in form, which I don't think they will be. They clearly have, shown some issues and whatnot. So you're giving me a good amount of points with the Jets. If you're going to make me a Dan and pick, well, I wonder what does a regular guy still like the Niners in that one? I think the spread has moved more towards the Jets, right?
Yeah. Well, it was 6 and then 3.5, then back to 4.5. I like the Jets. I don't think your typical Dan would be super heavy on the. I mean, I can tell you where the money's coming in on this game, but let's see.
My guess is Dan would probably take the Niners Because it's like, oh my God, the Niners and the Jets, like, and also the Niners have such a history against Aaron Rodgers destroying him that I think there are a bunch of reasons, but man, a lot of red flags for those Niners for me, especially in this week 1.
I'm with you 100%. Plus, the Super Bowl hangover, as far as the spread goes in week 1, it has actually been a legitimate thing. There's no doubt about it. It has. And, if you even had a semi-competent quarterback in there with that Jets defense, that's a good team. Zach Wilson was terrible. Garrett Wilson's awesome. Breece Hall is awesome. Mike Williams is going to be active. Doesn't even need to be awesome. Just be okay. Elijah Vera Tucker is back. The offensive line is better. The only question mark they have right now is Hassan Reddick, right? But even that, how worried are we there? You look at their secondary, probably the best tandem in football. You could make an argument for a couple of others, but just spectacular. And to your point, the biggest thing for me, Trent Williams hasn't practiced. If he doesn't play, this is moving to 3. I think. I think if he doesn't play, you're going to see significant line movement here.
So
but even if he does,
is that a weird way of you saying if you like the Jets, you should probably get it relatively soon?
I would, wouldn't you? I mean,
yes.
Take him now because this line is not going to move. I can't see this going to like 5.5. I just can't. I can't see that. And that's not as important, the 3, the 4, the 6, but still, I don't see him. Let me give you one more here.
Beautiful.
You won't like this.
Good. I don't like a great many things.
Okay. You know what I don't like? I don't like Sam Darnold as a road favorite. Give me the Giants.
No, I'm with you. Home
Giants
dogs
money
like that. Yeah. Oh, they're probably going to win. Yeah.
I don't think they.
Is that controversial?
Well, they're dogs. I mean, they're dogs at home to say.
I mean, that's the right play. That is the right play.
Even if it doesn't win, I don't care. I'm not betting Sam Darnold in his first start with the Vikings as a road favorite. Plus, if you actually look at the construction of this Giants defense, they got some dogs on the line. Dexter Lawrence, Thibodeau can get to the quarterback. They brought Brian Burns in, got him from Carolina. Yeah, the suspect secondary is a thing. But if you're getting to Sam Darnold, he's the guy, let's not forget, that saw ghosts in New York. I mean, I hate to say that with spots like this because you'd like to think in week 1 these lines are pretty accurate. But I like the Giants in week 1, man.
Yeah, there are many times, I don't care if it loses. I know the right side of a bet and the wrong side. You have Sam Darnold on the road, and you have a home team in their home opener as an underdog who doesn't have a much worse team than the team that's playing. The right side is to take a home underdog. It's as simple as I don't even have to think about that.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. If the Colts were plus 3.5, I don't know what they were, but if they were plus 3.5 at home, the thing is you don't have to look. That's the right side. You guys know my theories about 2.5. It's why I needed to somehow get the Packers. I don't like dogs at 2.5. I just feel like it's just the worst number ever. So I stay away from them. I would have no problem taking the Colts at plus 3.5. You're going to take them regardless. But same type of thing here with the Giants. I don't need anything. You give me, if they're underdogs at all, I would take that money line. How many points? Can't be more than 1.5, right?
What's that?
Can't be more than 1.5 points, right?
It's 1.5. Yeah.
Okay.
1.5. But I'm just betting the money line.
Yeah.
I want to give you 2 more and get your thoughts because I have some on these too.
Good.
Do you think the Cowboys should be 2.5-point dogs against Deshaun Watson?
I guess it depends if you told me CeeDee Lamb's status. I mean, like, I've seen Watson do nothing and the team win. So that's what worries me. So Dak has some random blow-up games where he looks awful against good defenses. He's really good at beating up on bad defenses. And, increasingly that offense kind of needs CeeDee Lamb out there to be at its best. They have no running backs.
He's
right.
gonna.
It's like the Ayuk situation. Like, what if he just feels
Sure.
a little weird, like, halfway through or something. I feel like it's really easy to tweak something when you get no training camp like that and you're just practicing on your own. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Are you saying it's I would have no clue what to take in that game as far as sides.
Dallas to me looks decent here. First of all, Jedrick Wills is out. They have some guys on that offensive line that are banged up, and you got a ferocious Dallas pass rush. Cleveland has a great defense, but Dallas does too. You can make the argument that like Diggs is the type of guy who gambles too much and gets himself in trouble, and I would agree with that. But yeah, I truly haven't seen anything from Deshaun Watson since the COVID season in 2020.
Oh, I know. I agree with you. I fully agree with you.
So, yeah. One more. This you gotta have a take on this one. You have to. Even if you don't, I'm gonna ask you to conceal the truth to the audience and fabricate one on the spot. Tennessee Titans and Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams making his first start. That is a 4-point spread. Chicago at home favored.
It seems like this is going to be a weird kind of back and forth game. You have Tennessee, who vows to be throwing it every single play this year. It was reported that Hopkins actually had a torn MCL that he's playing through. I mean, I would like to know his status if he's going to be playing and whatnot. Does this one have sneaky shootout potential? Does it have a high over-under?
I think last time I looked, it was 44. Yeah, 44.5.
I mean, I have a bet that so if you ask me to take the spread, I'll just take those points with Tennessee. Just asking
okay,
a
that's
rookie.
what I'm at too.
I mean, if it's more than a field goal in a game that, I don't know, go back and forth and then a team wins by a field goal at the end. If it's more than a field goal, there is something I really like in there. I was gonna kind of not throw this because it's so similar to the first one, but if I started with one, let me end with one. Tony Pollard, over 9.5 receiving. Hey, would just stop with the. All right, well, then maybe you want to stop winning, because if you look, he's clearly a great receiving back. This is an offense that they vow they're going to throw it every preseason appearance that he played with Levis. You're talking about 2 catches, 25 yards, 2 catches, or maybe 3 catches, 30 yards. He clearly is trusted in the passing game already.
Yep.
9.5. If he was on Dallas, what would it have been? 14.5, something like that. His receptions would probably be
maybe even higher. Yeah, maybe even higher.
This is the same Tony Pollard. He's not some big bruising back. He's gonna catch a couple of these dinks and dunks. This is the closest I'll get to taking a bet that I haven't seen. I haven't seen Tony Pollard on this team. I don't like to just operate strictly based off the preseason, but clearly if you're seeing receptions from a running back, it's a part of the offense somewhat. It didn't just come out of nowhere. And I believe he's going to be, I don't think it's going to be 50-50. I think it's going to be more 60-40, 65-35. And Spears is just going to continue to be more of a third down and kind of, maybe 1 out of every 3 or 4 series. And I just think the opportunities are great here for Pollard. I mean, in a game that's projected to have some points, if they claim they're going to throw it every play, give me 9.5 receiving yards for Tony Pollard. That's another one of my favorites.
Even if Tajay Spears is involved, it shouldn't really matter all that much. Yeah, I agree. The last number 1 overall quarterback to win straight up in week 1 was David Carr in 2002.
Wow. So, I do remember a couple of years ago, Jameis Winston played Mariota in a number 1 versus number 2 opener, and then I think Mariota and the Titans won that
But
one.
Also, that's kind of a misleading number only because usually they're drafted to pretty awful teams. They're probably always dogs. This is a pretty decent team for Chicago with a lot of weapons that they put around Caleb Williams. So I don't read too far into that, but I do lean with you where it's like, hey, they're 3.5 point favorites. A lot of unknowns here. If you're getting the Titans outside of a field goal against a guy that has never started a game before, I have no issues with that at all. I actually like it.
Sounds good. All right, Dave, as we go on here, we'll develop more of a format. My guy
Sure.
Alex, who did the baseball show and helped, with graphics and everything, so I don't have to worry about it. He'll be there starting week 3. But thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking the time every week to come do this. It's good. It's good to have somebody to bounce some stuff off, or else I'm just kind of a mad scientist with my whiteboard over here, just kind of coming up with stuff because I don't watch too much sports betting stuff. My time outside of my personal research that I do for the picks that I give, I don't know what the consensus on so yesterday when I saw everybody's taking the Derrick Henry overs, I'm like, why? Who does nobody know the offensive line situation with them? What the hell's going on? And sometimes I'm happy about that, but it is good to have somebody that I trust come in here and bounce some ideas, even if I am too stubborn or thick-headed about something like the Nabers. I'll let you know next week how I feel about that.
It appears we're both stubborn about that. I'll say this. I mean, I got it. It's moved up 5 yards since then. So we'll at least take the closing line value, and I'll consider that a win. But no, this is a lot of fun, man. I appreciate it. We'll keep doing it. Keep forming, keep getting, kind of mold something together here. By week 17, we'll have it locked down.
Yeah, we will. It's all about next year. That's what it is. Always just push it down the line.
That's what we said before we started this. Yeah.
I saw yesterday, I forgot who it was who tweeted. He said, remember, you were never wrong. You were just early. And he retweeted something about that he said about Isaiah Likely from 2022.
That's awesome. So, to be fair, I would give that guy credit. If he saw it the whole time, he saw it coming. But yeah, good stuff.
I'm sorry. I think I'm on the other side of that. If people listen to you and you screwed a lot of people who listened to you that year and took them, there's no unscrewing them.
Wait, hold on. No. Was this fantasy, or was this guy saying in 2022, hey, this guy's going to be a stud? Because that's perfectly reasonable. It just took him a while.
But if you're giving fantasy advice, you're basically
was it fantasy advice?
Yeah, I mean, he's a fantasy guy. So if somebody's saying that,
I thought it was just a, hey, this guy's going to be really good.
I think, what's funny when people give just an open-ended, they'll put since this guy was drafted, only so-and-so ran a better. So they're telling you to draft him without saying draft him over market. You know what I'm saying? They're letting you surmise it.
Yeah, they're what they're trying to do is I'll tell you exactly what it is, okay? I've been in this industry long enough on both sides. They're trying to absolve themselves of responsibility if it doesn't go well, while still having the caveat where they can claim success for being right. See what I mean? So if they're wrong, they're going, hey, I was just, that's just a point of fact. But right? I don't see any lies. But then if they're right, they'll quote tweet their own thing and say bang. Right? That's the way it's done.
Bastards is what they are.
So next time you see stuff like that and people are just throwing shit out there, which is fine to do if you're not the guy that's victory lapping it when it ends up being right and memory holding it when it ends up being wrong.
Yeah, so this dude's great. He doesn't do that, but I'm just saying some people absolutely do. Yeah, they want to be on both sides of it. Oh, that pisses me off. Perfect way to end the show. I do want to say all those sign-up deals that OddsShopper gave me to give you guys from last year, I'm going to update those. So any of these picks from any of my videos, including this video, the weekend video, the Packers video, if you don't use all the sportsbook, you're a Dan. Really. And I'm not saying that. You guys know I never sell you shit. But if you, somebody, I talked about Justice Hill, I have to take him at minus 125 on Draftkings. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have to take him. The Singletary, like I told you about, is minus 9.5 yards, minus 115, only on Fanduel. He's minus 10.5, 11.5, 12. So you're just going to take that on the other sites? Make sure you're getting the best prices. It's the only way you're going to avoid being a Dan, even though Dan, by the way, I mean, that's what you got this weekend. Your wife said you can have one. It's going to be that Devin Singletary. I'll make sure there's a Fanduel link.
I'm going to bet it too.
And I put the what the promotions are. OddsShopper updates those promotions, and then I relay them to to you guys. So if you ever want to sign up and get that bonus, those links will always be there for you. Anything else you want to say? Where can they find?
Yeah, on Twitter or X at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. And find everything else over on OddShopper, YouTube OddShopper, and Stochastic if you're looking for some DFS stuff. We've got it fully dialed up for the start of the season, man.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll hop on every once in a while. I think when hockey starts up, I bet you I'll get a call or two to come on. Like last year when I just hopped on that set, I just started screaming about something and left. I'm sure we'll see those. All right, man. Well, good luck this weekend, and I will we'll talk before next week, but as far as the show goes, we will see you next Friday. Take it easy, my man.
Sounds good. Later, guys.